Good morning, students. Today we'll be talking about how to go about dealing with a case of neglected posterior dislocation of shoulder if such a case is presented to you in your exam or during your practice at your clinic. So if given a patient with neglected posterior dislocation of shoulder, it is usually a short case and you'll be asked to give your diagnosis at the beginning only. So you have to give your diagnosis like, I'm presenting a case of neglected posterior dislocation of right dominant shoulder of 3 months duration in a 40-year-old gentleman with current disability of difficulty in doing activities of daily living with no neurological deficit. So you have to tell the diagnosis, the dominance, which side is affected, the duration, the age of the patient, the current disability, and what's the neurological deficit if any is present. So remember to be sure of mentioning all these things in your diagnosis. In case the examiner wants you to present your history, this is the way you should go about presenting your history. The patient was apparently well 3 months ago when he suffered an electric shock. So remember, these patients with posterior dislocation of shoulder usually can give a history of electric shock, a major road traffic accident, or a history of seizures or epilepsy. So these history findings should alert you to think about a diagnosis of posterior dislocation of shoulder. So then you start giving your presenting complaints and in chronological order, and then describe the history. So he had an electric shock, and since then he have been having pain in the right dominant shoulder. The pain was sudden in onset, moderate in intensity, aching in nature, radiating below the up to the right elbow along the lateral border of the arm. Remember, all the shoulder pathologies usually present with pain along the lateral border of the arm and don't go beyond the elbow. So this is the way you describe your pain. You tell what is the aggravating and relieving factors, what has been the intensity of pain during the last 3 months or the duration of time since the pain has been there. So we can say that pain has been similar in intensity over these 3 months and is aggravated with attempts of activity and subsides with rest. There's history of night pains. The patient has difficulty in sleeping on the affected side. So our patient will also complain of stiffness in the same shoulder. Stiffness will also be there since the time of trauma or injury or electric shock. How the stiffness is affecting the activities of daily living, you have to tell. So he'll say that patient has great difficulty in combing, lifting things from overhead shelf, bathing, dressing. You tell about if there is any diurnal variation of stiffness to rule out basically inflammatory pathologies. So also give negative history of numbness, of tingling sensation in the arm or forearm to rule out any associated nerve injuries. No history of fever, weight loss, constitutional symptoms, any systemic infection to rule out inflammatory disorders, pain and swelling in other joints, and also take significant past history, medical history and family history. So at the end of the history, if you're asked to spell it out, you may be asked to tell your differential diagnosis. So on this history only, you can tell that maybe the patient has a neglected dislocation, maybe anterior or posterior. Maybe there is a cuff tear because there was electric shock, and since then the patient has not been able to move his arm properly. There may be a adhesive capsulitis or stiffness in the shoulder. Rare cases of arthritis, you may say, can on the basis of history. So in examination, you always start with your general physical examination and then go on to the regional examination. During any case of shoulder, while doing the regional examination, it's important to undress the patient up till the thorax so that you can examine both the scapulas and the front of the shoulders properly. So you start with always look, feel and move. So inspection, palpation and movement. So in inspection, findings would not be much apparent in such a case. The rounded contour may be there, bilateral shoulder will be at the same levels. Just comment on negative findings of no visible scars, sinuses, bilateral clavicles, mammary folds at the same level, scapula and axilla at the same levels. In palpation, again, you start with the temperature using the dorsal aspect of your hand. So bilateral shoulder temperature should be checked, then tenderness should be checked over bicipital groove, coracoid, AC joint, SC joint. So tenderness may be present in biceps groove in these patients. Scapula, tell about retractability of scapula, any abnormal thickening or irregularity of the bones, any scars, sinuses, lymph nodes in the axilla. So movements you have to check in sitting and supine position, and with the arms at the sides and at 90 degrees, specifically 90 degree abduction specifically for the rotations. So in a patient with neglected posterior dislocation, the most specific finding would be complete loss of external rotation, which is termed as logged in internal rotation. Yes, there will be loss of sagittal and cornal plane movements also, but still these axial movements of flexion and abduction are still present. Like you can say the patient may have about 90 to 100 degrees of forward flexion, about 70 to 90 degrees of abduction, but external rotation with the arm at the side would be absolutely zero. Again, internal rotation may be some amount of internal rotation may be present, but the most specific sign in a patient with neglected posterior dislocation is your logged in internal rotation or complete loss of external rotation. You can comment upon adduction, extension, whatever is present. Always compare with the normal opposite side, the movements. Go on checking for the strength of your cuff muscles. If no associated cuff tear, the strength of cuff muscles of supraspinatus, of infraspinatus and subscapularis would be normal. Check for strength of serratus and trapezius. Special tests you can do for biceps if there is biceps tendinitis. Speeds test, Yergason's test would be positive. Complete your examination by doing a sensory examination and motor examination of the distal extremity. Always look for axillary nerve palsy symptoms, because in any dislocation axillary nerve palsy may be present along with the dislocation. So at the end of your examination, you'll be again asked to spell out your diagnosis. So you spell out your diagnosis on the basis of the main diagnosis, duration of symptoms, age and current disability and neurological deficit. On the basis of this examination findings of only external rotation loss, complete external rotation loss and loss of other movements also, you cannot make a proper diagnosis of posterior dislocation. You will keep a DD of adhesive capsulitis and glenohumeral arthritis, because these three are the main conditions in which there is loss of external rotation. So you keep a differential diagnosis of posterior dislocation, adhesive capsulitis and glenohumeral arthritis. So first two would be the DDs. You can only make your diagnosis or confirm your diagnosis only after getting your imaging findings or X-ray or CT findings. So if you are asked to spell out your positive examination findings, you talk about this, not much on inspection. Again, on palpation, if there is some tenderness, you can spell it out. Main finding is, as I told, logged in internal rotation or complete loss of external rotation. So we told about that we have to rule out these three are DDs of posterior dislocation, adhesive capsulitis and GH arthritis. So you confirm your diagnosis on the basis of a X-ray. So there is a rule of 2 for X-rays for any joint. Always get a X-ray in 2 orthogonal planes. So for shoulder, these two orthogonal planes are AP